Welcome to the Powercast with Charlie Johnson. I'm one of the world's leading fitness and transformation coaches. I'm going to be providing you with the tools to build your ultimate body and mind. So absolute pleasure today to have IFBB Pro Troy Brown from the UK, who no longer lives in the UK, on the Powercast. How are you doing?
I am great, man. And yeah, I do miss London, don't get me wrong. You're in Kent or Surrey?
I'm in Surrey now, so for about a week or so, then I go away again. So I've been flying around a little bit the last few weeks, and will continue to do so, I think, for the rest of the summer. So it's fun times.
You jet setter, you.
It's a lot of airports and hotels, but when you get settled somewhere for a period of time, it's not a bad lifestyle, I have to admit. So I can't complain about that.
Absolutely.
So a bit about yourself, Troy. If you explain obviously yourself to anyone who doesn't know you, where you're originally from, what you do now, the sort of process you've been through to get to where you are.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, first of all, for having me on. It's an honor and a privilege to be on your podcast, man. I'm from Hackney, East London. I was born and bred there, and then I moved out to South East London, and always been an athlete, always pushed by my dad to play football, and that was an obsession for me as a kid. You know, wanted to be a pro soccer player. I say soccer player because I'm in North America, right? That's what everyone
I'm going to guess that who you support from where you're from in London. Actually, I don't want to get this wrong now. Is Arsenal supporter?
I am a Gooner, but we won't even go there because that's a whole nother subject. We can spend hours talking about that team right now and how appalling they are. But, you know, they got a new manager and new players, so hopefully they'll turn it around next season. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Moving swiftly on.
Sorry?
Moving swiftly on from that one then.
Yeah, moving swiftly on. Yeah, next. So, yeah, from London, England, and for football was my passion, obviously, for many years, and did really well at that. I actually turned pro and signed for a team called Nottingham Forest. Yeah, and when I was signed for Nottingham Forest, I was 17 years of age, and while that was happening, I had my first child, who is my son, Rory. He's in London. He's in England. And at the time, so I had that going on, just signed pro. And then about a year later, I went into the office with the manager, who at the time was Frank Clark. And he said to me, we're going to put you on loan because you need to put some weight on. So off I went to a lower league division team called Northampton Town. Long story short, they put me on a banana diet, actually, which I've talked about on many podcasts before. And banana diet, full of banana. I think I was having like 4 or 5 bananas a day. I couldn't stop farting. But anyway, I remember putting on a lot of weight, and they got me weight training, which I never weight trained before. And I just remember, honestly, Charlie, just falling in love with lifting weights. And after about 3 months of lifting, I think I put on about 20 pounds. And I was hooked. I was bitten by the bug, absolutely loved it. Ended up walking away from football altogether. My dad was devastated because that was bragging rights for him in the pub. So when I gave up, he didn't talk to me for 6 months. But then he saw me getting a little bit passionate about lifting weights and doing this bodybuilding thing. So
what were you doing in the transition when you left work to pursue bodybuilding then?
I started working in the gym. I became a gym instructor, and I was cleaning the equipment, cleaning the toilets. And I just loved the gym environment, the gym atmosphere. And then I started, becoming a personal trainer. I started that back in 1990. I started PTing clients back in 1996. That's a long time ago. So
you were 6 years old back then.
Oh my goodness! See, you're already making me feel old, man. I need my walking stick. But I remember just falling in love with the gym environment and the people. And I remember I started getting really serious and started getting really bitten by the bug. Started buying the magazines, Flex Magazine, Muscle and Fitness. And I decided in 1999, I'm just going to go out to the Mecca. And I was about 175 pounds. And all I wanted to do was just be in the energy. And I remember walking into the gym, Venice Beach at Gold's Gym, and seeing Flex Wheeler and Chris Cormier training together. That was my first time I ever saw a pro bodybuilder. And those two were training together for the Olympia. They were 3 weeks out. And I remember running over to Flex Wheeler and I said, I'm a big fan of yours. I'm all the way from England. Can I get a picture of you? And he said, come after my training session and we'll take a picture. And I was upset, but I can understand why, right? He's dieting. He's 3 weeks out from Olympia. And I remember walking into Wells Gym, which was down the road, and I saw Lee Priest, and I was like, oh my God, like literally, I haven't seen a pro bodybuilder, but going to the States and seeing all the legends. And then I met my idol, Sean Ray, and that was it. I made a decision there and then I was going to, start competing. And so I ended up doing my first show in 2001, Stars of Tomorrow, and that was in Canary Wharf, and I placed second, qualified for the Britain, and got second at the Britain at the first timers, and I knew I wanted to become a pro. So it took me 7 years to become a pro, and I got my pro.
From first competing or from first going to the gym?
My first show was 2001. Yeah, 2001. So I turned pro 2006. As everybody knows, I beat Flex Lewis in the overall. I won the heavies. He won the light heavy. And that was a dream come true. And then I thought, I'm going to make it. I'm going to be this big sensation. I'm going to be the next Dorian Yates. And off I went. Yeah. Off I went to North America. I actually moved to sunny Alberta, which is one of the coldest places on the planet. I met a Canadian girl and kind of got sidetracked, got involved in some businesses I shouldn't have done. And my bodybuilding dream was sort of fading away. And I ended up walking away from it in 2011. Did 4 pro shows, did pretty well. My last pro show, I placed 6th. And yeah, I ended up literally walking away from bodybuilding, and I got really heavily involved into network marketing. And I did that for 6 years. And then when I got out of that, I just decided I walked away from bodybuilding way too soon. And I didn't even hit my peak. And I'm going to give it another go. This is in 2015. So off I went. I was 174 pounds. Lost all my muscle. Was a vegan at the time. And I decided I'm going to start eating meat again.
Trying to go back.
Sorry?
You're like a Kevin Levrone going back.
Yeah, I came back, and honestly, Charlie, everything was going great. I mean, I was putting on muscle. The muscle memory came back very, very quickly.
I think becoming vegan then, out of curiosity, was that from an ethical standpoint? Or?
Yeah, it was just my partner at the time. She was a vegan. Well, she was a vegetarian, and she went full blown vegan. So I think it was inevitable I was going to do it too, right? I mean, your law of association, you surround yourself with. So, she was also into the physique world too. She was she did fitness. All those girls that do all the splits on the stage and all that. Yeah. So she did really well at that at the time. So she got out of the sport, and I think, we both wanted different things. I was struggling financially, moving to a new country, and bodybuilding wasn't paying the bills. So I was PTing on the side and working on the door at nightclubs and so forth. And that's probably why I got a bit of taste in my mouth and why I walked away from bodybuilding, which I shouldn't have, because my dream was to do the Olympia, which I got close to in 2007. If I would have qualified, I think if I would have placed 4th, I would have qualified for the Olympia, but I missed out. I got 5th place. But anyway, so... yeah, I walked away 2011. I walked away from bodybuilding, came back to it in 2015. Everything was going great. Started putting on muscle again, got back up to 265 in the gym one day, bench pressing. I think I was doing close grip bench presses, and it was my last set, my last rep, tore my pec, tore my tricep, and career was done. Career was over. And here I am today, still in decent shape, trying to help these 40. Yeah, trying to help these 40-year-olds, trying to be the inspiration, the source of inspiration that they need. And, just really trying to live this healthy, holistic wellness approach to this age where you're in your 40s, right? People think that you're going backwards, but I really believe that we can get better at any age. So I have some injuries, but I'm still training really, really hard, and watching people like yourself on Instagram, leading the charge in the fitness industry and transforming bodies is very, really inspiring. So here I am today talking to you. Have a coaching business called Apex Physiques, and I'm pretty much doing the same thing as yourself. Got clients all over the world, and we just love to serve. We love to help people. So that's kind of the short end of my story. There's a lot more to it, but that's kind of the cliff notes, if so to speak. It's
a funny thing. I remember I can't remember who messaged you, whether I messaged you or you messaged me on Instagram, and it was the most surreal thing because I think you used to train originally for a while at Forest Gym in Crawley with Harold.
Oh my goodness, yeah, those were the days. I
used to train there when I was like 18 for a while, and I used to really look up to you guys. And I was like, that literally, idolised. I was like, obviously being IFBB pro and all those bits and pieces. So it's, it's funny how things sort of come about, and you end up on like having these sort of conversations now on the same sort of wavelength. It's an amazing experience. So
very cool.
It's very humbling from my point of view to be able to have that opportunity to speak with you today.
Oh no, it's my pleasure.
What was, in terms of your career, was there anyone in particular who helped you develop or you learned a lot from? Obviously, I know you trained with Harold. I don't know if he prepped you for a lot of the shows from sunny old Forest Gym in Crawley.
Yeah, you know what? That's a question a lot of people ask me, and you already mentioned his name. He was like a brother to me. I looked up to him so much. I always believe success leaves clues, and I always believed that, you know, if someone has what you want, study them. So he was already a pro.
Associate yourself around them, get in their circle, their mind.
Yeah, man. I remember I was training clients in London, so I would drive to Crawley like 3 or 4 times a week just to be in Harold's energy. And I watched the man. I watched how he trained. I watched how he prepared his meals and how he conducted himself when he was in the gym. And I watched how he trained. I actually would drive from London to Crawley just to see him train with his training partner. Anyway, long story short, we ended up training together a few times. I would always train every Thursday at Forest Gym and do legs with Harold.
I was going to say, what did you train? I can imagine.
Oh, man. Those workouts were torture. We've spoken about them on many podcasts, but the lunges on the hill outside the gym, having like 100 pounds on your back, going up and down the hill after making it your last leg exercise on leg day was pretty brutal. And I remember, getting ready for nationals, and I remember Zach Khan was a favorite at many nationals and shouting out his name, while I'm doing those lunges, like Zach Khan. So yeah, great memories. Honestly, you don't realize at the time how many those memories that you're creating at the time. But Harold, I owe a lot to, because he taught me the ins and outs of how to conduct yourself as a professional and how to be a good ambassador for the sport, which we all need, right? So I'm just truly grateful for him, and not forgetting Mr. Yates, who you just had the honor to train with recently in Marbella. I owe him a lot too, even though I didn't know him at the time. I remember driving up, actually got a train from King's Cross to go and train with Dorian a few times at Temple Gym, and that was pretty nasty too. So, but great memories that will last you a lifetime. Yeah,
so I think it's one of those things. It's difficult to sometimes appreciate those moments when you're in the moment, and sometimes you have to almost like pinch yourself to realize what's going on at the time, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. You do. Yeah, you don't realize. And it's just great things to talk about and tell the grandchildren one day that, I was this IFBB pro, got on the front cover of magazines, and it's something to be grateful for, but you don't really realize it at the time. So yeah, I have mentors. I'm a big fan of having a mentor and a coach. I think everybody should have some type of coach or mentor. If it's good for Michael Jordan or Tiger Woods, it should be good for us too.
That's a great thing. I always love when people say, why have you got a trainer if you're a trainer? Well, Tiger Woods is the best golfer in the world, and he's got a golf coach, golf trainer. So yeah, just because you can do it doesn't mean you know it all.
Love it. I couldn't agree with you more. Absolutely. Yes. It's
like every aspect of my life, I have someone who pretty much helps me with everything. That's the way you learn. But I think from your own mental aspect, it almost takes the weight off your shoulders, having someone else from an external point of view to give you accountability and like an external thought and energy process, just to sort of run like ideas by or get a second opinion, because there's so many people who will give you an opinion who, quite frankly, you don't necessarily care what they think. But if it's someone who you hold in high regard, and I think it's one of those things, if you respect that person and you work with them, you want to do a good job for them. If it's your bodybuilding coach, your business mentor, you want to make them proud of you, as like corny as that may sound. It'd be the same thing as the clients we have. Like, you get the same thing, you get lovely messages all the time of how happy people are. And it's when they've lost a load of weight or they've improved their health. And it's an incredible experience to be able to receive messages like that on a sort of daily basis. And it's you can't quite, summarize those feelings sometimes.
Yeah, I think because you're living life on purpose, right? I think it's very evident that you're living your life on purpose, serving people, and you're doing what you love. It's your passion. You can see that from afar. So when you get those messages, those heartfelt messages from individuals, it just basically makes you realize that I actually am on path, and I'm gonna do this to the day I die. So, and I think we're both in the same
positive energy and vibe into the world.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think we all have a purpose. We're all here for some reason or another. Some people haven't defined their purpose, and that's okay. But I think if you ask those deeper questions and get really, really quiet, if you're a person that meditates, and we're going a bit woo-woo here, but I'm a big fan of meditation, but it really does allow you to have a clear vision. Maybe not in the beginning, but if you treat it as a ritual, like weight training and nutrition, like what we do, eventually you'll be shown the way of what you're destined to do. I mean, we've all got these gifts, right? We've got these unique gifts, and we're all different, and it's our birthright to bring those gifts to the table, make sure that we use them on a daily basis. And sometimes that means
what they are.
Yeah, we've got to discover what they are, but at the same time, you got to put yourself out there, and you got to make yourself sometimes vulnerable, and you're putting yourself out sometimes to be ridiculed. But if you're realizing the bigger picture, and that the bigger picture is to serve humanity, then, just take it on the chin. I sometimes still get worried about what people think, but you can't. When you have a big vision, You can't worry about what people think, because you want your legacy to go on and on and on and on. And I have my son who watches me on Instagram every day, and he is one of my reasons why I do what I do, and why I have to make myself uncomfortable and step out and, you know, put yourself out there maybe to be ridiculed. And if that's the case, then so be it. But, you know, we've got to think big picture here. Yeah,
and live very nice. I think I was having this conversation with my dad, actually. One of the most interesting things I think about social media now is that I'm essentially documenting the entirety of my life. So when I eventually die, which hopefully won't be soon, like someone will be able to go back through and look through my life for like the last 50 years or whatever. You'll be able to see video, like you'll still be in existence in a digital format. And you know what I mean, like your great-grandchildren will be able to go look back and see what Troy was like and all these bits and pieces. That, when you start to think about it in the context of time and like a legacy, is an incredible thing to do, I think.
What you just said there is very deep, and I think most of us don't think that way. And I'm glad you actually said that, because it does make you stop and ponder and realize, actually, is what I'm doing going to help somebody, or is it going to maybe not help somebody? So it's like you are thinking about a particular post or a particular video. Is this particular post or video going to serve somebody? Is it going to give them value?
Yeah, and it's the same thing with everything. I try to think is that the why of everything in life is like, why am I going to eat this meal? Why am I going to do this training session? Why am I going to put this post on Instagram, Facebook? Like what? There's always a reaction you're looking to trying to get from the world, from whatever it is. If you're looking to eat certain food to get leaner or to get bigger, or you want to try and educate someone on a certain subject. And that's, I think a lot of people are very mindless in their thought process of why they do certain things. I think as soon as you're aware of what you do and why, you can then suddenly control your life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think thoughts, man. I mean, we are what we think about all day long. My old mentor would say, if you knew what people were thinking, you would be speechless, because most people aren't thinking. But we've got these.
Very good saying.
It's true, but he's bang on. Every time he would say, I would laugh, but it's so true, though. And I think we would rather ask someone else, you know, for advice, as opposed to actually think about what we truly want in our life. And the worst thing that we can do is maybe ask someone that isn't qualified for it to give us the advice that we need. I think that we need to go from within, or ask somebody that has what we want, you know, in order to ask those deeper questions. Absolutely. Yeah, man.
I think that's one of the only downsides of social media and the easy access of information, and that anyone can put information out there. There is so much poor information out there now on certain subjects that people are often led astray on certain health aspects or whatever it might be, that isn't necessarily going to help people, and it's going to waste a lot of people's time, and it can have a lot of detriment to people, unfortunately.
It's a good point. You know what? I think sometimes we all want to be entertained, right? So we look at Instagram to be entertained, but if there's somebody out there that's giving really good value of information, and maybe they're not so much entertaining because they know what they're here to do, sometimes people will tune out. They'd rather listen to someone that maybe isn't qualified, and maybe that is maybe entertaining them on social media, and they would listen to that person as opposed to somebody that really has something to say of value.
Yeah, no, I'd agree entirely.
Yeah.
So digressing from, obviously they were talking about the mental aspects of the world and our ongoing legacies we're both trying to build. Some training questions I'd be curious to ask you. What would you say was the key for you building the muscle mass you did?
Oh man, you know what? That's such a good question. I would put it down to
what was your training split like? That's the same thing I ask everyone this question on podcasts if they're fitness related.
It's a great question though.
And like I had a good friend of mine, George Cruz, was on it the other day, who plays rugby for England and Saracens.
Yes.
And he said exactly the same thing. It's just consistency. It's the same with business. Everything is day in, day out. Just if you get 1% better every day, but you do that for 365 days, you do that for 3, 4, 5 years, suddenly you're at an elite level of whatever it is you want to do.
And in the moment, it's actually hard to not realize that. And we lose sight of that because we get impatient, right? And we live in this...
I'm the worst for that as well.
Oh, me too. We live in this microwave society where we all want it yesterday. And I hold my hands up. I'm very impatient because I know what I want. And when things are very slow, you kind of get a little bit frustrated. But the thing I always loved about bodybuilding, it was all on me. And where you control all the variables. So for me, I think persistence was, and doing my 10,000 hours, I was a student. I just became a student of the game, and I just looked up to people that I wanted to be like Sean Ray. He was the reason why I idolized him so much, because the way he conducted himself as a professional, the way he looked, he didn't have a weak body part on him, and he always showed up on stage in shape every single year. And he was a little bit opinionated, but I think that was part of his character. And that's something that I really appreciated. Yeah, it made him different. It made him stand out from the crowd. So why would you want to be different? That's the thing about us human beings, is that we're all unique. We all have these gifts. If everyone was the same, it would be very, very boring and very laborious too, right?
100% agree. On the obviously this isn't a bodybuilding podcast, but something I have to bring up. What was your opinion on Sean Roden turning up? I don't know, I presume you saw, I think it was the Pittsburgh show, completely out of shape. Would you agree that was a bad idea, or?
So, you know what, I actually didn't see, but I kind of heard, I think Sean Ray gave his 2 cents on it, but yeah, I mean, Sean's a professional, right? Both they are, and Sean Roden's a professional. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, if you are Mr. Olympia, and I know Sean Roden, he's a great man. He really is a great ambassador for the sport, very humble person, and really wants to help people too. But I also see, if you're a professional and you're the number one guy on the planet, then it is your duty to stay in shape year round. I think you have to at that level.
Just don't go on the stage,
Yeah, you just don't show up. If you're out of shape, then just don't show up. And I think that's something that I have to commend you for, is that you're in shape year round, and that's something that I don't really see very often. Sorry,
most of the time. The thing I find difficult with is allowing myself the room to grow, because I want to grow continue to grow my physique, which I slowly am. Which feels very slowly, but I look back through photos and I can see the progress. But you have to trying to do that whilst not trying to throw on tons of crap weight is not necessarily the easiest process to do, and it requires a lot of patience.
Yeah,
to push and pull up and down all the time.
It's true. That's a good point. That's one thing I do regret about my career, is that once I turned pro, I was always a very balanced, symmetrical guy. I was never the biggest guy on stage, but I was always probably one of the most conditioned, probably the most symmetrical. So when I moved over to the States and I wanted to do the Ironman Pro, which I knew Phil Heath was competing in, I played the size game, and I came in that show. I was 248 pounds at 5'6". That's a lot of weight. And I normally would compete around 230. I turned pro 221, 222. So for me to compete at 247 a year later was just way too much weight. So I played the size game. So if I could turn back the clock, I would have maintained my conditioning year round, and I would have stayed off some of the supplements that weren't, which I wouldn't use at the time, if I can be open and transparent here. So yeah, you learn from your mistakes. And if I could turn back the clock, I would have kept a streamlined physique, done something very similar to what Sean Ray used to do. Maybe just go 20 to 30 pounds off season weight. And then that way you can cruise into the show, and then you always come in on the money on condition every single time. So, and that's what happens to a lot of people who turn pro. You go to the States, you start doing some American shows, and it's very easy and being tempted to play the size game. Yeah. Very, very easy to do. So, and I remember Bob Ciccarello coming up to me, and he says to me, "You got such beautiful shape, Troy." He said, "Don't play the size game." And I didn't listen to him. So I think you're this new sensation. You just turned pro. You got on the front cover of Flex magazine.
You're excited. You want to take on the world, don't you?
Yeah, it's like, how dare you? Who are you? Like, kind of thing. I only listen to one person. That's Harold. So we put the game plan together, and it didn't work for my physique. So yeah, I think if anybody's listening and if they compete, don't get too heavy too quickly. Stay lean year round, and you'll find that your body's way more optimal. And also not forgetting that when the body is leaner, the body's so much more efficient too. And I love what you talk about.
I think your body just utilizes food better, and everything just runs smoother, and you can
absolutely.
You can also see what's going on. So like if you're 10 kilos overweight and you put on another kilo, you don't really notice it. Whereas if you're only 2 kilos overweight and you put on a bit of body fat, you suddenly notice it quite considerably. So it's easier to adjust if things are starting to get a little bit out of hand.
Yes.
It's easier to keep a tighter rein, right? And then we can also see what body parts are improving, which ones aren't, because you've got a great shape to see what's going on.
That's true. That's true. I can remember this time when I was guest posing. It was the year I turned pro, and I wanted to do my first pro show in Montreal, and I was 3 weeks out, and I was really behind Charlie. And I remember doing this guest spot, and I remember jumping on the boards the next day, and they were all saying how I look out of shape, I'm not going to make it. And that right there, I learned a huge lesson that what you do in the off season determines how you're going to look on stage. I always believe that's when the athlete is built in the off season, but also at the same time is that the athlete really needs to pay attention to their conditioning in the off season, but also take it very, very seriously. I think too many amateurs don't take their off season seriously enough, because I truly believe that you're training for a show for 1 full year, not just for 16-week contest prep.
The real magic happens when you make progress, is not when you're actually dieting, because nothing's changing. You're just pulling off body fat and trying to maintain the muscle tissue, really.
That's right.
Do you have any tips with your clients in terms of trying to stay lean whilst growing, or during their off-season phase, or any little pro tricks and tips that you have up your sleeve?
Yeah, I tend to work with more gen population. I do work with the people that are coachable, that I won't take on any person that isn't coachable or has the desire for change if they want to compete. So I'm very selective of who I work with. But with the gen population, a lot of them obviously have bad habits. So you're working against their paradigm, which is a multitude of habits, which is deep rooted. And you have to do a lot of inner work with them. And they don't really understand that, 80% of this game is mindset, 20% is mechanics. So I've heard you talk about this as well. So for me, it's understanding that I got to do a lot of inner work, a lot of journaling, a lot of gratituding. They have to do, a lot of parasympathetic stuff to keep their stress levels down, because most of them aren't doing it. And that's the reason why they probably ballooned up in the first place. So yeah, I think the goal is to keep all my clients in a healthy body fat range, regardless of who they are. But at the end of the day, we want optimal health, right? We want them to be, healthy, not just outside, but internally too, mentally and physically, mind, soul and body, or whatever you want to call it. So I like that holistic approach to this. And that's what I've encompassed myself as a former pro bodybuilder, is I do live a very holistic lifestyle. I believe in the power of visualization. I believe in meditation. I believe in journaling, gratituding. I really believe in reading a good inspirational book every day, because the thing out there, when you see in the world, the bad stuff doesn't even have to find you. It could just knock on your door now. All the negative stuff will find you. So you do have to take matters into your own hands and read and study good information and positive material on a daily basis. Something inspirational that's going to uplift you in the morning, because if you don't, you'll fall victim.
I've done is, I probably stopped this about a year ago. I just don't watch the news anymore. I don't read the paper, because I just I'll go and look for something if I need to find out about anything. But realistically, I don't really care, because all that's going to be on the news is, if you're in London at the moment, it's going to be stabbings or whatever, Brexit. That's pretty much all that you're ever going to hear about. It's never going to be anything positive or inspiring to start your day if you've got the news first thing in the morning, and you're already going to have that negative energy and mindset in your thought process, which quite frankly, I don't want at all around me, or even first thing in the morning is the last thing you want.
Yeah, sensationalism, right? And I always say CNN it's an acronym for constant negative news. And it's true, though. So I think that people want to be inundated with what's going on in the world, but you'll find it somehow anyway. So I choose not. I'm like yourself. I choose not to watch the news, and I rather just pick up a good book. I've got hundreds of books that I read, and I just pick up a book and scroll through it. And if I'm meant to read a particular page, that's what I'm reading. So, but I've been doing this for years. I've suffered with depression and anxiety for a long time in my life. So I find if I don't do my meditation, if I don't journal, if I don't read a good book, it's very easy for me to go back to old habits.
I find even it's the simple things that people don't understand that make a difference, is even just stopping and breathing for a minute or two. And for me, I just go for a walk first thing in the morning, and or if I'm really stressed and working too much on a laptop, I'll just go out for a walk for 45 minutes. And just that thought process of even just getting out in the fresh air, a bit of sunshine, just blood moving around, it just clears your mind.
Yeah, you're getting back into that parasympathetic state, right? And we both do that every morning. I'm out walking, and I love that's what you do too. I love that about you. That was one of the things when I started watching your stories on Instagram. I said, this guy gets it. He understands. And every morning you're out there walking. It's a great time to think. It's a great time to think of creative ideas, but also you're in nature too, right? So it's just, it just makes sense that that's something that we should definitely spend time doing. A person asked me today in one of my questions on Instagram, what's one big health tip that you could give somebody if you could pick one? And I said, do what I'm doing right now. Get outside and just walk, do 30 minutes of walking, or do something towards 10,000 steps every single day. I believe that can change somebody's life, their health in a nutshell.
Funny enough you said that. I had exactly the same. I think someone put my IG story about how I want to lose weight, but I don't know where to start. And I said, look, the easiest thing you can do is just get up before you have breakfast, go for a power walk for 45 minutes. And I guarantee you that'll change your life alone. And it doesn't cost you anything. Anyone can do it. Done. There is no excuse.
It's true. That's the thing. I think the information that we were talking about just before we went live here, there's so much information out there and people get inundated with so much information that it gives them the analysis paralysis. So they don't do anything with it because we've got information flying at us from everywhere. We can get, decent enough programs, or I would say they're not tailored towards us though, but the information's out there. So sometimes when there's too much information, people just don't want to take any action, but we have to go back to the basics. That's what I'm all about, is teaching people the basics, because you do need to you need to have a scientific approach, obviously, but at the same time, if you're not doing the basics, then all that scientific stuff really doesn't matter in the beginning. So that's why I love what you talk about, making sure that you get outside and go for a 30-minute walk every single day. It clears your head. You're putting, oxygen back into your lungs again. You're clearing your head. And it's a chance for you to start thinking of creative ideas. We were talking earlier about how people are not thinking, right? If you go out and walk, you're going to start to feel better, because as you move, it creates a good emotion in your body. What does Tony Robbins say? Motion or emotion equals motion, or motion equals emotion. So you got to move. You have to move your body. That's what it's designed to do. It's not designed to sit at a desk for 8 to 6 hours a day. So I love what you do. You practice what you preach. I really love that about you, that you're leading the charge and you're leading by example. You're teaching your clients, what they should be doing. And I really believe that, yes, it's important for a coach to understand how the human body works, but at the same time, he has to practice what he preaches. I remember what Robert Kiyosaki said once from Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He said one time, and it always stood out to me. It was years ago he said it. He said, if your mentor or coach doesn't practice what they preach, fire them.
Oh, it's the truest thing ever. It's like you wouldn't take a financial advice from someone who's bankrupt. Like, it just... You have to, if you believe in the process of what you do, you would do it yourself.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Again, back to what we're talking about people with false information, incorrect information, maybe, and like agendas trying to sell things on social media or the internet now. There's unfortunately a few people like that who don't necessarily practice what they preach, which I find frustrating when, say, for someone like myself or yourself, like, this is what we're passionate about, what we love and do, and we do practice what we preach on a daily basis. Which is one of the beauties of social media. It gives you the opportunity to document and show what you do on a day-to-day basis, which I always find is a funny thing, because people who look at some of the weird things we both do and think, like, we put stuff out there and you think this is incredibly boring, no, I'd be interested in this. But then people are curious about, oh, what's that sugar-free sauce you're using, or like whatever it might be, like what brand of coffee do you take, or it's just random little nuggets of information, but then that adds value to other people's lives.
It's true. So true. Yeah. And I think that you for yourself, I think what you're doing is you've created a really unique way of putting your information out there. That way the whole world can benefit. And I think that's the beauty of social media now. The world isn't necessarily getting any bigger. It's getting smaller due to technology now. And
coming together.
Oh, it's incredible. Like, we can impact people. I'm in Canada right now and you're in the UK, and this is how powerful. It's crazy. It is. But there's something that we actually don't think about, or we're not even grateful for. So I think this is a great way to start your day in the morning, is to think of gratitude. Like, as soon as my feet hit the ground, I have to put myself in a state of gratitude, because you got another chance. And the one thing I heard recently is another mentor of mine, what he does is when he meditates, he asks he asked the universe, he said, we're going a little woo-woo here, but he would say, what is my assignment today? Like, what is my purpose today? How can I make an impact? How can I increase my service today? And I think those are really, really good questions that you should be asking, the higher power, so to speak.
I think the whole thing of being grateful, like people forget sometimes, like I do it myself, even sometimes I go and train, I feel a bit tired, and I think like, I kick myself sometimes, like get your acting gear. How fortunate are you that you have the physical ability to be able to go into a gym and lift weights or do these things that, like, you get hit by a bus tomorrow and not be able to walk and never be able to do this again, then how much would you enjoy that leg session that you're about to do now? Like if that was going to be your last leg session, if you know what I mean. So and I think a lot of people, even the general public, sometimes aren't aware of how lucky they are to have a healthy and fit and functioning body, because the reality is you can lose that at any instance. Like your image and the way you look or your physique is not going to be timeless, and I'm well aware of that. Like you can't rely on the way you look as a professional bodybuilder like you were, or how I look now, because ultimately that will fade, but your mind and your legacy you will have forever.
That's so true. Like that is what you just said there is so powerful. I hope people got it, and they should write that down, because that is some powerful words there that what you just said. So no, I just think, I think the reason why most of us are wandering around aimlessly like a leaf in the wind is because we're not being present.
No.
We're just thinking about the future or the past. And that's why, again, I'm going to talk about it again. People probably get so annoyed when we keep talking about meditation all the time, but it allows you for that moment to be present. That's why I love doing the cold shower, because in that moment of having a cold shower,
I don't have the minerals for it, unfortunately. I wish I could do it. I just can't do it.
You know what it does? Like over time, you don't think about anything else. You don't think about your job. You don't think about what went wrong yesterday. That's
what I love weight training about. Because the moment you go into the gym and you're like, I've got 200 kilos on the squat on the bar, like you're not thinking about anything else.
Yeah.
You're thinking about, don't let this crush me. This is moving from A to B and could like contract your quads, but like you're not thinking about, I need to pay this bill later on, or I need to deal with this problem. Everything else just disappears. It's a pure moment of clarity for me.
That's a great point, because I remember having the same discussion with Dorian once. He said the same thing. He actually found that bodybuilding, when he was very low body fat and he was very tired, there was times in his career where it was more of a spiritual journey. He actually found he would go from within and find an extra resource that he didn't know where it came from. And he said he would leave all these problems at the door at the gym, and all it mattered was the workout. Nothing else mattered. And I completely agree with you. I think weight training, resistance training, and that's why I preach it so much, why it benefits so many men and women, because you're right. It allows you to be present in that moment, and nothing else really matters if you're pushing yourself and if you're really paying attention to form and making sure that there's time under tension and making sure that you are, we talk about it's a term used very much in this industry, mind muscle connection. But if you are using that, then you're going to stay present in that particular moment in the gym. And unfortunately, though, what will happen sometimes is our phone could be our biggest blessing and also a curse. So when you're scrolling through Instagram, you're not really particularly being present. So I would encourage anybody listening, if they're serious about weight training, is to just put your phone on airplane mode. If you've got to do a video, then by all means, but you don't want to be sitting there in between sets scrolling through Instagram, because you've taken your mind. Yeah. You're taking your focus. Yeah, you're taking your focus and your mindset off the job in hand, and now you're thinking about things outside of you and you're not being present. So how do you expect to get results?
First thing I do as soon as I go into the gym is my phone goes in airplane mode. And like, for me, again, that's almost like my escape from the world, because you have such an overload of information coming in from WhatsApp, email, like social media, that it's just constantly getting bombarded with almost like contact all the time. And you can almost never escape from that. Whereas when you go into the gym, phone's off, that's like my peace time for me to like go to work, do what I love to do, and just like forget about everything else.
Love it. I love it. And I think more coaches, more trainers, more people that are listening should definitely take that advice, because it will stop you from wanting to see social media. Obviously, when the workout's done, then by all means, but
you do what you like then.
Yeah, you can do what you want, but when it's time to train, it's time to train, and it's all business. But I always think people have this belief that, oh, it's for the physique athletes, that's what they should do, but everyone else, we don't have to do that. Why not? If it's good for the athlete who has results, then, you know, successfully it's fruits.
Yeah, exactly what we were coming back to. So if you want to have results like them and you want to have the abs like they do, what do they do to get them? They're not sitting there in between sets going through Instagram and Twitter and all these other bits and pieces.
Yeah, I don't talk to people think I'm a little bit rude when I work out, and even though I don't compete anymore, I still have that mindset. That's one thing that bodybuilding has taught me for so many years, is when it's time to train, I'm in my own little world, and I put my music on. That's what I'm known for, my headphones and my beats and weights is my little hashtag. And
t-shirt with that, beats and weights.
That's what I'm going to do, yeah, with this governor philosophy that I'm creating. So I'm in my own little world, and once the workout's done, then I'm your best friend. But when it's time to train, it's all business.
Where did off into another tangent, where did the governor philosophy come from?
Oh, my goodness. Well, I originally thought about it when I was back in the UK. But what was interesting, when
Americans understand that, or Canadians?
They some of them do. Actually, they do, because they've seen like Lock, Stock, Two Smoking Barrels, right? And Vinnie Jones and people like that. So they kind of understand like the Cockney philosophy. So how it all started, I'll give you the real quick version. I was personal training in Alberta, and this gentleman came into the gym, never seen him before, but he knew I was in town and he knew I was a pro and he wanted to train with me. So he signed a waiver and he said to me, Troy, I've been through some strenuous workouts. There's nothing that you can give me will break me. I said, okay. And I said, you do know I'm from England, right? Us English guys are pretty, we're very intense. He said, no, bring it on. So I went, so you sure? So we warmed up, we did a bike, and we just did some mobility.
And you trained legs with him?
We actually, we did legs, actually. That's what he wanted. But anyway, so he kept telling me, in between sets, after we had finished, we'd do one working set to complete failure, and he would say, too easy, governor, in his Canadian accent. And I'd say, and by this point, I was okay, I was staying pretty calm, but he was saying it over and over and over again, so I was getting really, really mad. So I thought, okay, out come the drop sets, out come the rest pauses, out come the negatives, out comes the pre-exhaust techniques, all the high-intensity principles, and I just destroyed him. Long story short, he walked out the gym, stumbled into the shower area, banging into walls. So I waited outside the shower area for him, and he was in the shower. So he was in there for like 40 minutes, and I'm thinking, where is this guy? So I go into the shower area. There's no one in there, and I can hear the shower running in the changing room. And there he is in the shower, naked, sitting on the ground with the water hitting his back of his neck. And I said, brother, are you okay? Are you all right, mate? And he looked at me and he said, too easy, governor, and winked at me. And that was it. And that's when the idea formed in my head, governor. So basically the G stands for graft, work ethic. So I've kind of been tampering with it and playing around with it for a while now, but now it's become this, I don't know, people call me the governor now. So it seems to be working. And it's just sort of my way of bringing the UK mentality over to North America, right? And they seem to love it.
What would you say, my brief experience in America, I need to get out there more, and Canada, is Americans seem to love the British accent and British people generally. But what would you say is the big differences in the fitness scene between the UK, the US, in terms of attitudes, training, and what's your sort of training style? Obviously, you mentioned doing high intensity one working set, very Dorian Yates-esque. Is that your general preferred approach for yourself, clients?
Well, if you're looking for I would say the higher level athletes that are in North America, they seem to be more focused on volume. Yeah. They train they're into the training the body part twice per week. So there's a lot of, what's the word I'm trying to look for here? They train more consistently. So they'll train probably 6 days a week. Whereas when I came over here, I was telling people, no, you can get it done in 4 days. If you're training hard enough, you need to focus on recovery and recuperation. but they would find that very hard to understand. So they would be in the gym up to 2, maybe sometimes 3 hours here. So that was one thing I saw right out the gate when I moved here. So when I came over here and started talking about a different philosophy with, Dorian and Mike Mensa and Arthur Jones' philosophy, people thought I was weird. And, training with one sense of failure.
No one wants to buck the trend. Everyone wants to do the same thing as everyone else, but they want to get better results than everyone else by doing the same thing.
Well, people out here, I think the paradigm here is that the more is better. So they prefer beast mode. I prefer more least mode, which my good friend Luke Lehman talks about. He's actually coined that now. He would talk about least mode versus beast mode. And he always believes that less is better. And I completely agree with him, especially if sometimes we're looking at hypertrophy. If you're younger, you can get away with it. But guys in their 40s like myself, there's no way I can train. I always think, though, here's the thing, though. Just recently, this week, I stepped up my training. And even I've been lifting for 27 years. I still go back to, I'm going to try a bit of volume this week. And I get completely burnt out. My joints start aching. I can't sleep. And that's a sign that, again, Troy, you know better. But I keep going back to it. So sometimes I'm my own worst enemy. So I really believe that for me, with my body type, the most I can train on the consecutive days is probably 3. Yeah, when I was competing, it was always 2 days in a row, 2 days on, 1 day off, 2 days on, take the weekend off. That was my approach for years.
Probably max is ideal. I think 3 days max. Any more than that,
what do you do?
It's always been very similar. Recently, I've gone to more of a volume approach, trying to focus on certain body parts. So like 2 days a week now, I'm doing double sessions, but the sessions will be much shorter and much higher intensity. There'll be smaller muscle groups. So say, for example, tomorrow morning I'll do chests and triceps, and then in the evening do delts, biceps, and just split things up a little bit more. But I'm just playing around with a few things at the moment. I like to try different things, and that's how you learn. But I think for me, necessarily the high intensity max loading approach for one working set on certain things doesn't work particularly well for me. Like obviously you mentioned I trained with Dorian last week, and that completely blowing my knee. From overloading a little bit on that. So it's just finding what works for you. And I think different things work for different people. It's just trial and error to a degree.
Yeah, as I've gotten older, I don't do the one set approach to failure anymore. I just can't. I can't do it anymore. I've had way too many torn muscles to employ that old philosophy. So as you know, as we get older, our body adapts, right, and it changes. So now I do a lot more volume as opposed to what I used to do when I was back in the UK. Yeah,
I'm pretty much the same. My reps are going up and doing a lot more higher rest pause sets, drop sets, and things like that, which there's more tension on the muscle for a longer period of time, which I'm actually finding a lot more difficult because my body just hasn't got the muscle fibers developed to handle it. And also the working set is so much longer. And if you're doing a heavy set of 6 reps, or you're doing a failure set of like 30 to 40 reps, the 30 to 40 rep set is a long set.
Yeah.
And it's going to be painful and horrible, and it's going to be bad. Whereas I'd rather just make it really heavy, get it over and done with in 6 reps, because the pain's only temporary.
It's interesting you say that. I just did I was at a lecture with Ben Pekulski and another guy named Jordan Shallow, and he's very well renowned.
I'm going to one of those next week, actually.
Oh man, here's the thing. I tell so many people, I've been doing this for a long time, and I walked into this lecture and I felt, I know some stuff, but there's so much more to learn. There really is, so much more. And I learned so much cool little tweaks and things that I could do with my clients that I never even thought about once I got to work with Ben and Jordan. So they're pros, it's their job. They are inundated with information. They're always testing things out on their clients, and they have a great they're a great repertoire of exercises that they use, and they're all about stability of the pelvis and stability.
That's the big thing. I love the analogy that he talks about with the rope analogy of if you move one end of the rope and move the other end of the rope, you have to have one end of the rope anchored to be able to get it to get tension on it.
That's right.
There's no tension.
The beautiful analogy. Yeah. So I went in there. I mean, we learned so much, and definitely going to be doing a lot more courses with him in the future, probably travel out to Tampa. But what I'm trying to say here is that if anybody's listening, if you think the ins and outs of training, don't be afraid to keep inundating yourself. If you're a coach, if like we are, you got to keep moving with the times, because new information is, I couldn't believe when I took that 6-year sabbatical away from this industry and came back, there's so much more I learned in that 6-year period when I was away. When I came back, it was like a whole new world opened up. I was like, where will this stuff come from? So you got to be open-minded. You know what I did? I actually did CrossFit for 3 of those years.
Oh dear God.
Yeah.
Worse.
See, I know. I'm a very extreme person.
You became vegan and you did CrossFit for 3 years.
I know. And I think that's what probably smashed my shoulders up. So here's the thing. People are telling me about CrossFit. Like, what's your take on it? If you're at a good location that really focuses on form and technique.
But I couldn't do CrossFit. I can't do an overhead squat with the bar. I haven't got the ability to do it. I couldn't do it. I got it in the end, but I mean, the thing I had to do for the first 6 months, Charlie, is learn all the movements, because bodybuilding, right? We don't go to full lockout, right? Everything's kind of mid-range, like constant tension. So when we're warming up, the coaches would say, Troy, this isn't bodybuilding. We have to go full lockout here. So even when I was squatting, we would do some squats or deadlifts. Everything is to that full lockout position, which I wasn't used to. So I had to relearn a lot of the moves again, but I was always open-minded and trying. So that's the thing about me. I'm not afraid to take risks, and I'm always interested in trying different things and experimenting on my body to see if it's going to work or not. And if it doesn't work, then at least I've tried. Yeah, moved on to the next one. I think that's the same thing. I think that's, as we've said before, I think if anyone who thinks they know everything, like no one knows everything, and there's always more new approaches being discovered all the time. There's a quicker way to go from A to B. So I think that's the whole part of life, is learning and progressing mentally, physically, and to try and be the best you can be, I think.
Yeah, keep an open mind.
Yeah, that'd be my number one tip for success with whatever you want to do. I think we'll start to wrap up there then, Troy. What would you say is your number one tip for success? Then if I'm going to go for that, then.
Number one tip for success in transformation or just in general?
Just go for general life, and then for transforming your physique for your clients, what's the best tip you can go for other than a morning walk?
I would say a success tip that comes to mind. Are we talking about nutrition or exercise, or just in general?
Just in general, just general life. Happiness.
I would say you got to have a goal, right? If you don't have a goal, then you're just wandering around aimlessly. So if you're looking for a coach and you don't have a goal, I wouldn't waste your money. I would say figure out what your goal is. What is your burning desire? Like, what do you truly, truly want in your heart of hearts? And once you can determine that, then you got to find the right coach to get you there. And basically do exactly what they say and don't deviate. And that's what a mentor is supposed to do, hold you accountable. And if you aren't following through on what you said you were going to do based on your reasons why, then don't be upset when they call you out. So because you told them that this is the reason why I'm doing it, because of my goal and the reasons why. And if you're not basically implementing what they say, then take it on the chin and don't get mad about it. Don't react. So I would say definitely that is number one. Find a coach, find a mentor, but you've got to have a goal. You've got to have a burning desire, a reason why you're doing it. Like I read one of your blogs today. You were talking about the scale. And people, I really liked what you said. And I forget where I was going with that now. I just lost my train of thought, but people should read it. It was a good blog, put it that way.
people just need to think the reason why. Like I get people ask, you got the same thing, your clients, people say, I'm not losing weight, but I was like, look at your progress photo. Look how much better you look. The questions I always ask is, so you're not losing any weight, but your waist measurement's going down. Your strength's going up loads. Mm-hmm. What do you think is going on? And you almost lead them to the answer themselves. Because people get so paranoid about the number on the scale, where it's not like, this isn't Weight Watchers. You're not necessarily trying to just pull off body weight. You want to try and be healthier and look better, which is the end goal for pretty much everyone.
Well, there's definitely people to blame for that. The biggest loser in extreme weight loss, because it was all based on the scale, right? So I love what you said in that. That was the post you mentioned in that particular article. Don't focus on the scale. So focus on your clothes fitting differently. Focus on, the measurements coming down, the pictures looking different, your energy levels going up, your sex drive coming back. Those are huge. Why would you want to? Here's what I ask people. would you rather have a number on the scale come down and not have vibrant energy and have shit testosterone and have low sex drive and having poor energy levels? Would you rather have that number come down as opposed to the rest? So you got to let people come up with their own answer for that. And I love what you said there.
Themselves most of the time. Like, it's quite a fun game sometimes, but
that's some good coaching right there that you just give them. Really good coaching. Absolutely.
Plant seed. But
yeah.
So thank you very much for today, Troy. It's been an absolute pleasure. Where can anyone find you on your social media channels?
Instagram, baby. The Troy Brown. You can find me on my website too, apexphysiques.ca. I'm on Facebook, but for some reason Facebook has not terminated. They've suspended my account, my coaching page, and I don't know why. So I've been trying to get in contact with them to get it reinstated. So I don't know why they've done that. I don't know what's going on there, but most of the time you can find me on Instagram, and I'm posting on a daily basis too, like you are. So I'm trying to be consistent like you, man. You're inspiring me to do more.
Leading the charge.
Absolutely.
It's all comes down to consistency. I'll pop all your details in, obviously, the summary for the podcast. Everyone go and check out Troy, and if anyone has any questions for either of us, drop us both a message. Hope you guys enjoy the podcast, and if you haven't already, leave us a review. It would be greatly appreciated. So peace out, and thank you very much.
Take care, everybody.